Let's build a Whoop with OSD. Now, you saw me build the BETAFPV long-range FRSky version last time, but that did not have an OSD. So this is the other flight controller that BETAFPV has that is the newest, latest, and greatest. And it is basically the same thing. It's still an F3, but it has an OSD. And if you see, there's a couple of extra pins here that we can solder to. That allows us to get a video in, video out feed with an OSD transmitted. Another thing that I noticed that's kind of cool is the boot now is a clicky switch versus two jumper pads that you have to bridge and solder together. So that's a welcome change. I was confused, and you might have heard me say earlier that this one did not have an antenna, or that the other one only had the antenna. I must have totally missed that, because this one is not the long range version, but it still has that crazy antenna, or the antenna sticks up. So I'm going to keep to the same methodology that I want the antenna to be very straight and stick perpendicular out from the main board. Other than that, it looks like the exact same board. One thing that I did notice that I do like is this board comes pre-soldered with the Power Whoop connector, or the JST 2.0, and then it has the smaller JST 1.25 as the extra. So there's no fiddling with that. There's no soldering or changing that out to go with our newly modified Power Whoop connector batteries. Another thing that I did notice is that the solder on this one, the solder job for the cables, is really quality. On the last one, it looked super janky. This one looks good. I just think this board was manufactured to a higher quality than the last one. All right. So we've been over how to mount the propellers and the motors and all that stuff into the frame. Just real quick, for anyone that hasn't noticed, there's a bigger hole in the back side. There you can see it better of the frame. See how there's a smaller hole here and a bigger hole here? This is the where the USB goes. So just like that. So this is the USB. You want the larger hole to be the rear of the quad, because the white arrow faces forward. The USB is on this side, on the rear, just to kind of help things go smoothly. And also, red, blue is here, white, black, red, blue, white, black. You want the propellers spinning in like this, and these propellers spinning in like this. We've already covered this. Most of you already know that, but just I want to mention that every time I build one of these, because inevitably someone's gonna not know and get things mixed up and have a lot of heartache over that. All right, so we're using the same motors as before, same BETAFPV frame with tri-props. This is a little bit different. We've got a camera that we did the mullet mod to, but I'm gonna have to unsolder this yellow wire, and I'm gonna solder that into the board along with the power, and then I'm gonna solder a wire from the board to the transmitter. So I've already got my soldering iron heated up. I guess first thing that we probably should do is get the board ready to solder to. So I'm just gonna stick it to my handy dandy sticky tack, and then I'm gonna put 4 little solder pads, or solder blobs on these pads real quick. So if this is the front of the quad and it's looking like this, we've got, what is that? Camera in, VTX, ground, and 5 volts. That is the order going down. And it's printed on the board, so it's easy to keep track of, which is good. And what I'm doing here is I'm getting just a little bit of a ball on the tip of my soldering iron, and then I'm going back and I'm just getting a little blob on each of those pads. That way, when I'm ready to solder to them, it'll be very easy. All right, so there we've got 2 or 4 shiny little blobs ready to rock and roll. Now I'm going to unsolder the video cable, the yellow one, from the video transmitter, because I have a video signal going from the camera to the transmitter, and instead of the transmitter, I want the signal to go from the camera to the board. So I'm just gonna real quickly desolder that. Okay, and I'm going to take this green wire and solder it in its place. Now these legs are a little bit longer than what I want, so I'll make that nice and short. Same thing on that end. All right, let's tin this wire up. Let's get everything ready to solder into place. Okay, so again, we have a video signal coming out of the camera and we're going into the board. If we look here, it has the very top one is camera, then VTX, the signal going out to the video transmitter. Then we've got ground and then 5 volts. So camera is the first one in. I'm gonna have, I guess another tip is if you're soldering stuff in, kind of hold everything like it's gonna be mounted. So you're not like soldering it over here and then you have to bend it all over to mount it over here. If this is the front, again, following the white arrow, and the camera is also gonna be facing forwards, let's go ahead and solder it in so that it is pointing the right direction. So just like this. Perfect. All right, and now we're going to have to solder in, what was it, VTX. So the signal, now the video signal goes from the camera to the flight control board. The flight control board overlays the information on top, and that signal has to go back out of the board to the video transmitter to be sent away. So now we're just gonna solder on our green wire that's gonna carry the OSD overlaid video signal. Very good. And then we solder this back on the original terminal that the yellow wire was soldered to. If I can untangle myself real quick. So I'm probably going to have the video transmitter laying like this or like this. So let's just throw the cable on top for now. I'm going to go ahead and pull the flight controller off the sticky tack to put this on. And then we'll solder in our green wire. I might need to actually use some tweezers. This is a small little wire. Here we go. All right, that is a tiny little connection. You might not be able to see it, but I'm just going to test it to make sure that it's soldered, no cold solder joints, and that there's no bridges between any of the other wires. Okay, that looks good. All right, now we're looking at the last two pads, and it goes again, camera, VTX, then we're looking at, what is that, ground, and then 5 volts. So now we just solder in for the camera itself, ground, and then 5 volts. Alrighty. And then our last wire. This is kind of a mess, but once you get it all tucked into the canopy or mounted down, then it shouldn't really be that big of a deal because the wires and everything will be underneath a canopy, so it shouldn't be getting snagged on anything. All right. 5 volts, here we go. Very good. All right, you've heard me say it a million times. We'll say it again. From the top to the bottom, we've got the feed from the camera, the feed out to the VTX, ground, and then 5 volts. Everything looks good. Alrighty, so now that we're all connected with our wires, before we fit anything else up, let's double check polarity on everything, and then let's plug it in and see if we're getting the video feed properly with the on-screen overlay. All right, all the connections look good. Let's grab a battery I'll pull up my LCD so you can see if the on-screen display is working. If this does not fall over, there we go. Grab a battery, we'll plug in the Whoop. There we go. And then there's our Betaflight OSD. Fantastic. Everything is working. We've got our artificial horizon. All that stuff is, this is what I guess you get with your stock setup with the BETAFPV board. You get your voltage, you get your horizon, which is annoying. You get your mode, whatever mode you're in. We're in acro mode right now. We get a couple of timers, and that's it. There's no, I mean, yeah, that's what you're getting from the stock, but we can change that very easily. But I think for right now, we'll just unplug it and then keep the build going. Alrighty. Let's move that out of the way. Alright, so now we want to take this baggie that comes with the flight controller, and this is our grommets, which are very valuable. You only get 4, don't lose one. You need all of them. And then the hardware. Now, last time I was a little bit confused as to why I got 4 silver and 4 black. Since then, I've kind of learned by just trial and error that let's say, okay, since red and blue, and okay, so this is the hole where the USB goes, USB, so flight controller is going forward like this. The front and rear hardware, I use the silver, and that holds it in place really well, because when I use the black ones, the head on them is not near as big, and when you're plugging in the USB, it just pushes the flight controller with the grommet over the black hardware without a head. But if you've got the silver hardware in, the wider head holds the grommet and everything down to the frame, so when you're plugging USB in, it doesn't just pop out. Then on the sides, where the canopy goes down, that's when I use the smaller black ones on the left and right side to hold the canopy and everything together. Again, you could probably use the silver ones for all of them, but I would not use the black ones for the front and rear grommets because it just slides off. Okay, enough about that. Let's go ahead and put these grommets on. Oops. And the last grommet. All right. And the grommets are very gummy, so when they're going on, sometimes they just push right off. So just kind of try to line all 4 of them up before you really press down. And I also like to take the power connector and go through the hole like that. Let's see here if we can get all these to line up. It's kind of a trick to get the grommets and everything lined up. And there might be a better way to do this. I might be doing this the most complicated way. Y'all let me know in the comments, what is your favorite way, or what do you think is the fastest way or best way to get everything all lined up and on? It helps if the plugs are not crunched in there. There we go. Alright, so we've just kind of worked it down, and we've got everything in place. Everything is nice and seated. Okay. So now I suppose we can, so I printed this off. This is probably not the ideal or best mount for the camera, but that will hold the camera in place like that, and then I'll put the canopy on top and that'll hold everything down. And then the video transmitter will just kind of be hanging in here like that. I suppose that's probably okay. And this is the tiny poop. Y'all might have seen me printing this This is something that hopefully will be vacuum formed pretty soon, but this is a 3D printed shell. It probably weighs more than what is what you'd want to put on your Whoop, but this is kind of just for funsies. So we'll slide this all on. I guess actually I'm going to put the video transmitter antenna through first. And then we'll try to get this all squared away. Okay, yeah, so I'm forgetting, let's go ahead and put the front and rear screws on. I just got so excited about the tiny poop. Can you blame me? Alright, let's go ahead and get... Oh dear, this is not going to end well. There we go. Alright. And then let's get the rear. And like I said, using silver hardware keeps the grommet from sliding back off the standoff when you're plugging in USB. So there is a reason to use silver on the front and rear. All right. See, I'm already noticing because this antenna is the way it is, you're going to have to do some funky bends to get it to work with any type of 3D printed FPV camera mount. Definitely not ideal. However, if it gives me the range that I've been getting, I guess I haven't flown any other Whoops besides like these EO10s, like these really cheap ones, and they do not have very good range at all. This has an amazing range compared to those. And if it is because of this antenna, then okay, whatever, I'll deal with it. But I'm curious if they could still get that same range without having this crazy antenna poke up. But that's neither here nor there. Alright, so let's go ahead and slide this video transmitter cable back through. And then I'm going to try to probably just, should I keep the antenna inside or should I just run it outside? Let's try both and see what looks best. So that's it running outside. That looks kind of weird. The tiny poop might just be tall enough that I can run it inside. Let's see. Oh my gosh. That antenna goes right up to the tip of the of the print. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got the antenna inside now. Right on. All right, let's take our, let's do our black screws. Let's see if those are usually easier to get threaded in just right. So we're gonna go through the tiny poop, through the 3D printed mount, and then into the standoff that's holding the grommet into place. Very good. And then the other side. Here you can see it's pretty good. So we've got the canopy, and then the 3D printed mount, and then the black grommet. And we're just gonna go through, ah shoot. We'll take this screw and go through all of them. It's not one to line up. Just need to turn it just a tad. Come on. There we go. All right. Now we're cooking. All right, that's looking pretty good. All right, so let's just make sure both of these sides are snug. That one's good. Excellent. Now we just got to flip it over and connect our motor wires. And again, we're just going to real quick go over the convention. Front, this is motor 1, motor 2, motor 3, motor 4. This one, motor 1 and motor 4 are red blues that spin clockwise. and then motor 2 and motor 3 spin counterclockwise, and they are red and black. All right, you've been warned. Don't mess this up. Oh my gosh, I'm excited to fly this thing. Huh. Interesting fun fact, these brushed motors have permanent magnets in them, and so they pick up hardware. So be careful not to let random nuts and bolts stick to your motors before you take off. Alrighty. And again, I don't have the fancy rubber bands that hold the motor wires to the motors. I should probably get some, but I don't. So, whatever. Alright, good enough. And then we've got our power whoop connector sticking out the rear. Alright, so let's, I guess, plug it in one more time. Oh, and this is, if y'all want me to make another video on this, let me know. This is actually pretty slick. This is just a voltmeter, but I soldered in a connection so that I can plug in the power whoops or an XT30. So let's say I have, and this goes from 3 to 30 volts, so it can handle not just 1S LiPos, it can handle all sorts of LiPo packs. So let's plug this guy in. Okay, cool. I've got this at 3.69. That's 3.7 volts. That's my storage voltage, so this LiPo is ready to be stored. And this works on my brushed whoops. And then if I grab one of these, which is for obviously the tiny whoop that I'm building here, I'll plug it in, and then bam, 4.33, sweet. So this one's charged and ready to rock and roll. And it is tiny and small, and I really like it. So if you want me to show you how to build one of these, let me know. It's super simple. So this is our fully charged pack. Let's plug her in. All right, everything lights up. I'll get this set up for you. Oh no, I think my little tripod just took a dump. Oh no, on the live stream. What am I gonna do? All right, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna just lay this here. Y'all can still see it, kind of. Oh man, it's not near as good. Oh well, you'll get the gist of it. So that's working. Okay, so I'm going to unplug it, and then I'm going to get my controller. We haven't bound it yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. Man, I get so excited, and then I forget to do stuff. All right, so let's bind it so that I can actually fly it. Okay, so I'm going to take this hardware and put it back in the little box so I don't lose it, because that stuff is tiny and valuable. It's hard to find replacements for that. All right, so I got my Taranis set up with the same profile as my last whoop that I built, which is fine, but I just need to make sure that the receiver on this binds to my transmitter. So I'm going to go ahead and go to menu, and then I'm going to page over, and then we'll go to the press up and go to the bottom, and then keep scrolling up to where it says bind, and I'll click bind, and it'll start chirping. And then I remember last time I had a very difficult go at plugging this in and clicking that bind button at the same time. I don't think I'm going to have any... Yeah, let's try something a little bit crazy. All right, so I'm going to set this pin here. I'm going to click it in. Oh, of course. Man. Oh my gosh, this is like the most frustrating part. How do I click this stupid thing? I think I used a battery last time. Out of all the things, this is like the one. Okay, yeah, I think that kind of works. So I'm just gonna stick a battery back in that slot and then like pinch it down. I think I can hear it click. And then we'll plug this in. Maybe that worked. Let's see. So I'm gonna take it out of bind mode. Plug this in. Let's see, I think there's a light. So that's still flashing, so I think that means that it's not bound. Dang it. All right, let's give it another go. I think whenever that light is on steady, that means it's bound. All right. Oh my gosh, I need more hands. Okay. That might have worked. Let's see if that has a solid red light now. All right, so we got a solid red light. Let's see if we're lucky and channel 1 is set up to arm. Oh my gosh. Sweet, so we don't even need to go to beta flight. And real quick, if you didn't see, I'm going to, let's just exit out so I'll show you. If you're in your Taranis, you go menu and you click page and you keep paging over until you get to mixer. And then for channel 1, 2, 3, and 4 should already be set up for throttle, aileron, elevator, rudder. And then channel 5 is going to be your arming the way this is set up in beta flight. And I just set it to my SA switch, which is here. And then that way I can arm it. And I already had that set up. But if you have not set it up, that's what you need to do. Okay, so now let me grab my goggles and we're just going to do a quick flight, a Maiden, and see how this thing works with stock PIDs and all that jazzy jazz. I'm pretty bummed about my little 3D printed tripod. It finally bit the dust. Here, if I turn this light off and this light off, you can see better. All right, so let me grab my goggles, plug these in. I'm gonna take the battery. I'm just gonna zoop-de-doo it in there like that, and plug it in. We should be ready to rock. All right. I really don't like the artificial horizon, but we will make it work. All right, armed. Feels pretty good, as I would expect it to. I am noticing that I can see a little bit of the tiny poop canopy on the top left and top right. That's fine though. Whoa! What was that? What did I hit? Oh, the drawer's open. Ha! I didn't even see that earlier. Whoa, Nelly. You notice that I just stop talking whenever I start flying and like trying to dodge stuff. I can't do both. But yeah, this thing flies really good. I'm happy. Oh my gosh, I just need to stop talking. I'm down to 3.3 volts. It's flashing at me. Oh man. Let's get back. Cool. All right, so there we go. There is the Maiden setup and flight. Let's turn everything back on. Of the Beta FPV plus OSD for FRSky, yada yada yada. It works well. I didn't do any tuning. I didn't plug it into Betaflight at all, and you saw that it flies just fine. I'm going to unplug this before I completely ruin my battery all the way. Come on. Okay. Cool. So yeah, hope you liked it. Let's check the comments real quick to see if anyone said anything. Oh, we got quite a few comments. Nice job, guys. Y'all are starting to leave some stuff so we can talk at the end. I'm just going to say hey to Ander Petrie Hidalgo. It's starting now. Coaster Labs. Hey, man, what's up? MM75. Yes, you should want one. Only because of the tiny poop canopy, though. That's the only reason you want it. Joe Peacock. Hey, man, what's going on? Scoot Rotor. Hey, man. He says, please post links to the frame, flight controller, camera, VTX, all parts. I will certainly do that. Usually, because of my workflow, I post all the links in the description and stuff towards the end of the day, and I'm just kind of busy running around, and I do the stuff in between other stuff. MM75 also says, my cat is watching this and chasing your fingers. That made my day. That's hilarious. Yes, the tiny poop lives. All right, guys. Well, thanks for the comments. Thank you for joining along, and hopefully this was enlightening. Hopefully you learned something about the Beta FPV board plus OSD. Oh, one thing to note that someone asked me in the chat earlier was he had this board, which was the one with OSD, and I had, when I was building the other one that did not have the OSD. They're the similar boards. They're both F3 flight controllers, but this one has a different target that it flashes to in Betaflight. So be very careful if you're updating to the newest, latest, and greatest Betaflight. Don't grab the SP Racing F3 Evo target for the OSD flight controller, because that's the wrong one. The SP Racing F3 Evo target is only for the one that does not have the OSD. I don't know specifically which one this is, but I'll leave it in the comments so that we can clear up some confusion. Yeah, so again, thanks for joining along, and hope you all enjoyed that, and I will see you next time.